Hello, YouTube. Many people have been wondering if I got kicked off because I haven't put a video up on YouTube in a while. But no, I'm fine. Everything is well. I've been doing a lot of training in the last week, shooting a lot. It's been fantastic. Just haven't been posting to YouTube. There was so much happening in the last week, and I had a rare opportunity where I'm actually at home and I can train myself. So I kind of was like, let's just take a break from making videos for a while. You know, I did get put back on Instagram. I was talking a lot of shit about, I think, SIG primarily. And then I was not allowed to be on Instagram for a little while. Got the account back, started practicing. It's like, we'll just let this week play out. And then it'll be fun to see where things stand. All right. So I know it's been beaten to death. It's been beaten to death, but there's so much wild SIG drama stuff going on. I'm gonna give you the rundown of kind of what I've observed over the last little while, and then I don't know. We'll see what you guys have to say about it. So first, over the last week, the SIG 320 has been banned from a lot of places. I don't know how many places, but quite a number. Um, as a shooting sports organization, IDPA they've disallowed the SIG 320s. I've gotten notifications from, I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds of different clubs and ranges, hundreds. I stopped posting them to Instagram after a while because it was just so many. And there's this or that guy instructor, like the SIGs are banned from my classes, this range over here, this gun club over. I mean, it's constant of all these places um, deciding to get rid of the guns. There's law enforcement agencies stopping using them. Just a flood of this stuff over the last week. Now, this was all precipitated by the Air Force event. There was a death involved. A guy was shot. Then we saw the memo from the Air Force general guy who's like, "Hey, just pause use of these so we can investigate." Or I think that was the basically the nature of the memo. Now I'm starting to hear a little bit more about the actual Air Force incident. Now a lot of you guys aren't going to like this. Now I've heard a lot of different stories about what happened there, and you should know the story that was circulated initially was um, gun in holster, set down on table, gun went off, guy dead. That was like the story that was circulated initially. Now, I've heard that story repeated, but I've heard a lot of other stories since. I mean, some of the stuff was like, oh, there was horseplay involved. There's a bathroom involved where a bullet went through a stall. It was a straight up murder made to look like an ND. Like, I've heard that story floating around. I've heard all these things. I don't believe any of these things, by the way, but this, like, I've heard a bunch of stuff. Now, one thing I have heard that I do believe is that whatever the investigation going on in the Air Force, it's turned into a criminal deal. And like, for whatever reason, that changes the nature of the investigation. What I'm getting at here is I think the initial story put out, again, that it was holster, gun in holster, set on table, gun went off. I would be ready to see the rug pulled on that story, and there'll be something else, some other story or something else actually happened here. I don't know that, but I've heard about this criminal investigation thing from so many different people close to information that are all getting it from different places, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of inclined to believe that based on what I'm hearing. The other stuff, I don't know. It's just other stories that I heard. So I would, in the case of the Air Force thing, I would wait on that before you're like, Sig killed this airman. Um, let's just let's chill on that, wait, and we'll see what exactly happened there. So I know a lot of people aren't going to be happy to hear that, but that is kind of what I'm hearing now, and the story's been evolving. All right, we've got an interesting document here. Let me pull this up. So if you guys may or may not be familiar, there's oh shit. Before we get to this, Missouri judge certifies P320 class action. All right, this is another piece of news I shared briefly on Instagram, and now we'll talk about it. What happened is there's a class action lawsuit against SIG. It's the first statewide consumer class action over the P320, and in Missouri, it has been approved by some judge that they have a class of people, and the case is going to move forward. So that's legally not real good for SIG. There's other not real good for SIG stuff going on legally as well. So first, a little while ago, there was a document released by Practical Shooting Insights. You guys might remember him from the USPSA, that whole drama thing. Now, the story is this. There's some documents as part of a court case that are publicly available. All right? Insights pulled publicly available documents that had been redacted, but digitally. So he defeated the redaction and then posted the full unredacted document. This is what he's saying, and it appears legit, right? Because he pulled down these documents that were improperly or ineffectively redacted digitally, posted unredacted documents, and then apparently on the court website where the documents were stored, now that has changed and the documents have been properly digitally redacted. All right, so this is what we've heard. The document itself that was, redacted, then he kind of recovered it and posted it. It is a risk assessment matrix for handguns where SIG assesses, certain risks for handguns like accidental trigger pull, operator error, finger on trigger. And there's a chance that could happen, that they have a risk assessment matrix. And then there's consequences like, well, that could be real bad. They could kill someone unintentionally. And as part of this risk assessment stuff, there's stuff that you might think is interesting, like improperly clearing takedown before cleaning and maintenance. That could be a problem. Impact to weapon, dropped, bumped, vibration. It could go off and kill a person unintentionally. Again, according to the risk assessment matrix. It also shows in there some steps that SIG took to mitigate that risk. So I don't think it's a great document for SIG. It probably is worse that they're like redacting it or don't want it out there, because I think they could explain it. I think the explanation would be better than hiding it. But yes, that document is out there and it doesn't look real good for SIG. Again, I think SIG's defense of it would be saying, oh, this is a generic threat assessment for pistols and it's not specific to the 320. I mean, I think they can defend it a little bit. The most harsh thing I've heard said about these documents was this. It shows they had total knowledge as of February 2017 and that they concealed it to 8 federal cases, discovery fraud. Now their angry people can see the safety test results. So this is a lawyer friend of mine I'm asking about this. And I asked him, is this total knowledge of the risk or that it had actually happened and resulted in a death? I'm just making sure I'm interpreting the documents right. And said, total knowledge of the risk, it's a very bad document for SIG. So that is the worst I've heard, like the worst interpretation of these documents I've heard is that SIG has known since February of 2017 that there's a risk that this could happen and that they've lied about it. That is like the worst interpretation. And then, like I said, I think the SIG line on the document would be like, hey, this is just a generic risk assessment thing. And then it shows what we did to mitigate that risk. So we'll see where that lands. Again, SIG trying to hide it or cover it up is not real good. Also in the legal front, we've got a pretty good jury verdict to read here. There was a verdict about the SIG stuff. So yes, let's go ahead and read it. All right, so there's 5 questions I'm going to read along with the jury's answer. All right. Did the plaintiff, Jacques Desrosiers, sorry, I cannot pronounce that dude's name, prove by a preponderance of the evidence that defendant Sig Sauer Inc. breached the implied warranty of merchantability by defectively designing the P320 pistol? Jury says yes. And this is fresh, by the way. This is from the Jacques Desrosiers versus Sig Sauer case. This verdict's from July 28th. So this is pretty fresh. All right. If you answered yes to question 1, did plaintiff prove by a preponderance of the evidence that defendant Sig Sauer Inc.'s defective design of the P320 pistol caused him injury? Jury says yes. Question 3, did the plaintiff prove by a preponderance of the evidence that defendant Sig Sauer breached the implied warranty of merchantability by failing to give adequate warnings regarding risks associated with the P320 pistol? Jury says yes. All right. If you answered yes to question 3, did the plaintiff prove by preponderance of the evidence that defendant Sig Sauer Inc.'s failure to give adequate warnings regarding risk associated with the P320 pistol caused him injury? Jury says no. No. So the jury thinks something else caused this guy injury in this particular case. Right? Did defendant Sig Sauer Inc. prove by a preponderance of the evidence that plaintiff voluntarily and unreasonably used the P320 pistol, knowing that it was defective and dangerous, and was injured as a result? I'm going to read that again. Did defendant Sig Sauer Inc. prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the plaintiff voluntarily and unreasonably used the P320 pistol, knowing that it was defective and dangerous, and was injured as a result? Jury says yes. And they awarded, well, you can hear the answers to those questions. That's what the jury decided, and then they awarded the guy no damages. It's a little bit of a confusing verdict to read. I don't know the particulars of the case, but you read that, and it's kind of like, okay, I think the jury thinks the 320 is dangerous, and they think this guy like shot himself. Like they think both things simultaneously is how it reads. That's what you'd have to think. I don't know how, it doesn't really make sense otherwise. Okay, let's go through. Oh, wait. We got a couple of questions. Well, we'll take those in a second. Finally, cruising over to Sig's social media, reading the comments that Sig is still getting on Instagram are amazing. Stop being a Boeing and fix the 320. Pretending isn't going to make the issue go away. Garbage fire control unit, stop. Self-inflicted gunshot, Sauer. I heard you guys got Ben Steger banned. Shakes my head. Yeah, I don't know that Sig did that, but I was really only talking about Sig, and then I couldn't use Instagram for a while. I don't really know what happened. Okay, let's get to some interesting questions I've gotten about this. So one question is about the trigger safety tab. Now, people are asking, like, does this mitigate anything? Does this really matter? Now, I should tell you, I'm a fan of trigger safety tabs. I wasn't initially when I started shooting. I thought, like, oh, this is chintzy. This is kind of this dumb little piece here that I don't need that. Over time, shooting a lot more and then watching people like holster guns when maybe it's rainy that day and they're wearing like a jacket, you know, it's like I've come to appreciate the little margin of perceived safety that there is with the trigger safety tab. It's not too hard for me taking my trigger safety tab 320 to, you know, I can push on the trigger different ways and it won't go off. And then if I push it straight back, it will. Is that going to prevent accidents in every case? No. But to me, again, it just gives you that little margin where if something gets in the guard as I'm holstering the gun or something like that, it might save me. It might prevent the gun from actually going off if I make some other mistake at the same time. Now, will it have much to do with this issue that's going on with the 320s? That I don't know about. So like, check this out. I can put a lot of pressure on the trigger. I'm not engaging the tab, so the trigger does like that millimeter of travel back. Rack, rack, rack. Now listen to this. So as I released off the trigger, you hear that clicking. Now there's no clicking as I release here. That's not the same click. Nope. Yeah, that little click in there, like I don't really know what that is. But the point I'm making is I don't even have to defeat the trigger safety tab before I hear stuff happening in the gun. As I like, you know, if I was to pull the trigger, rack the slide, stuff is happening in there before I defeat the safety tab. So I don't know that whatever issues going on with the SIGs, I don't think the trigger safety tab is going to have a whole lot to do with it, even though I do think it's a good idea. I didn't used to really think so that much. I'm like, it's a little fruity, but you know, like this is one like experience has taught me. I'm like, no, having that safety tab, that is a good idea. That's a good idea. And I think SIG can't really argue that not having a safety tab makes any sense. Like it really doesn't make sense to me. All right, another question here. Ben, do you think insurance companies are involved in these decisions? And this is in reference to all the ranges banning these pistols, right? If the insurance company that covers USPSA says they will drop coverage if they continue to allow use the 320, then they would have to ban them, right? I have to imagine insurance companies for ranges and organizations like IDPA and USPSA could possibly be involved in some of these decisions. Based on my experience with insurance companies and ranges, I would strongly suspect no, that there's not insurance companies involved in it at this point, at least in the preponderance of these cases. This is guys that are, volunteers. They run matches, they're on the boards of ranges. They're seeing this stuff, they're hearing about it from other people, and they're getting out in front of it. And then, like, hey, stop using these things. I would be surprised if this is on the radar of a lot of insurance companies, at least before this really started blowing up on social media. This was kind of a niche thing a few weeks ago. And then before you know it, you got like Penguin Zero, Charlie talking about it with 17 million subscribers and shit like that. It puts a lot more eyes on it. So probably now a lot more people are aware. But I would doubt that there's insurance companies telling ranges you have to ban these things, at least at this juncture. Because I don't think it happens that fast. And I don't, like, what documentation would they have to like force them to do that? Because there's documentation of issues out there, but it's not, really clear or definitive. So yes, I do not think this is an insurance company thing. All right, guys. Well, there it is. There's your been gone a week SIG drama update. It just keeps going, but I feel like it keeps getting more interesting. So why stop now?